Alarms tore through the metal walls before I even opened my eyes. My escape pod was spinning, smoke filling the tiny cabin, and the fuel gauge blinked red with a single word my translator refused to soften: empty. I had seconds to brace before the pod slammed into something hard and flat, throwing me forward against the straps. When the smoke cleared, I was staring at 40 terrified purple faces. I had crashed into a schoolyard, right in the middle of recess. My name is Daniel Cole, and until that moment, my biggest daily problem was fixing broken reactor parts on cargo ships. Now I was lying in a smoking wreck, surrounded by alien children who looked ready to scream or run. Without thinking, the first words out of my mouth were simple and human. Is anyone hurt? Is everyone okay? The children froze. So did the tall insect-like woman standing near the school entrance. Her name, I would later learn, was Chaskin, and she ran this entire colony platform floating above a massive gas giant. She stared at me the way you stare at something that should not exist. On her world, nobody asked if others were okay before checking on themselves. Strength came first, weakness was hidden. But I had just landed my broken pod in front of her students and asked about their safety before my own. That single sentence changed everything. Repairs on my pod would take months. Since the part I needed did not exist anywhere on the platform, Chaskin decided I was not going to sit idle. She marched me into an empty classroom the next morning and told me, in a tone that allowed no argument, that I would teach. Teach what? I asked. I fix machines, not children. She said one word: conduct. That was how I became a teacher of a subject that did not exist until she invented it that same morning. The translator rendered the title as Unnecessary Kindness Studies. I stood in front of 40 young Vicari students, all of them staring at me like I had two heads, and I had absolutely no plan. So I did what felt natural. I taught them to say sorry and mean it. I taught them how to help someone even when there was nothing to gain from it. I taught a small boy named Torin that being scared was not something to hide, and when he skinned his knee during a game, I simply said that it was allowed to hurt, and that surprised him more than the fall itself. Weeks passed. Word spread across the platform faster than I expected. Attendance in my strange little class grew until it became the most requested elective on the entire station. I still did not fully understand why something so simple mattered so much to them, but I kept teaching anyway, because the children kept showing up, eager and curious every single day. Then one morning, Chaskin came to my door with a look I had never seen on her before. Her voice was tight, almost shaking. The Queen is sending her daughter to your class. I did not fully grasp what that meant at first. The Vicari Queen was not a symbolic ruler. She commanded thousands of warships and controlled a border that had not moved in 300 years, because nobody dared test it. She had only ever had a small number of heirs in her long reign, and each one was protected like the most valuable object in the galaxy. That same afternoon, the classroom door opened, and two guards built like walking vehicles stepped inside first, scanning every corner of the room. Behind them walked a young Vicari girl in a stiff formal uniform. Her name was Vesica, heir to an empire larger than anything I could picture. I welcomed her the same way I welcomed every student, and told the class we were about to practice apologizing, even when something was not entirely your fault. I asked for a volunteer to go first. The guards flinched, as if the idea of the princess going first at anything ordinary was unthinkable. But Vesica stood. She turned to Torin, the same boy who had once shown me his scraped knee, and told him she was sorry for pushing past him in line that morning, without a second thought. Torin blinked at her, surprised, then simply said it was okay, and thanked her for saying it. For a brief moment, the most powerful child in the galaxy looked lighter, like something heavy had finally been set down. I later learned the real reason the Queen had sent her daughter to me. It had nothing to do with math or history or diplomacy. Vesica already had the finest tutors in the Empire for those subjects. The Queen wanted her daughter to learn something no victory in battle had ever taught the royal family: how to say, "I was wrong," and actually mean it. For a while, life on the platform settled into a strange, comfortable rhythm. Vesica came to class every morning, greeting each child by name before sitting in the third row. Her guard stood outside the door, instead of inside the room, a small sign of trust growing between us. Then, on a quiet morning that started like any other, the alarms returned, louder and sharper than the ones from my own crash landing. The station shook. Lights flickered along the hallway outside my classroom, and a deep groan echoed through the metal walls, like the whole platform was being squeezed by an invisible hand. Chaskin's voice came through every speaker at once, tense and controlled. All students remain calm. Secure your classrooms immediately. Through the window, I saw them. Sleek black ships, unmarked and fast, cutting through the space near our platform. Pirates, raiders, something worse. It did not matter which. They were firing on the outer docking rings, and the tremors meant they were close to breaching the hull. 40 children stared at me, waiting for direction, their earlier fear from the day I crashed here returning tenfold. Vesica sat frozen in the third row, her guards nowhere near her, both of them likely rushing toward the command deck instead, unaware their princess was trapped with the rest of us. I locked the classroom door and pulled every child away from the windows, guiding them toward the reinforced wall near the back, the same wall Chaskin had once shown me during a safety drill I barely remembered attending. Stay low, stay together, I told them, keeping my voice as steady as I could manage. We are going to be fine, but I need everyone to listen carefully and move quickly. Another impact rocked the station, closer this time, and the lights above us died completely, replaced only by the dim red glow of emergency strips along the floor. Somewhere down the hall, metal screamed as something forced its way through a sealed door. Vesica grabbed my sleeve, her voice shaking for the first time since I had met her. They are looking for me, she whispered. If they find me here, everyone in this room becomes a target. I knelt down to her level, keeping my tone calm, even though my heart was hammering against my ribs. Then we make sure they don't find you, I said. Trust me. I remembered the maintenance tunnels beneath the school, narrow service paths I had used weeks earlier, while helping Chaskin repair a broken air filter. They ran beneath the entire education wing and connected to a secondary hangar far from the main breach point. It was risky, but staying in one place while armed raiders tore through the corridors felt far more dangerous. I pulled up a loose floor panel near the back wall, revealing the dark tunnel below. One by one, I guided the children down into the narrow passage, keeping Vesica near the middle of the line, surrounded on both sides by other students, so she would not stand out if anyone caught a glimpse of us. We moved through the tunnel in near silence, lit only by a small flashlight from my emergency kit. Above us, footsteps thundered through the hallways, heavy and fast, hunting for something, or someone. I kept the children moving, whispering encouragement whenever a young face turned back toward me with wide, frightened eyes. At one junction, the tunnel shook violently, dust raining down from the ceiling as something heavy exploded far above. A few of the younger children whimpered, and I crouched beside them, reminding them softly that being scared was allowed, but we needed to keep walking together, just a little further. Finally, the tunnel opened into the secondary hangar, dim and quiet compared to the chaos we had left behind. Chaskin was already there, along with a handful of security officers, organizing an evacuation shuttle. Relief flooded her sharp features when she saw all 40 children emerge safely from the tunnel, Vesica among them, unharmed and hidden in plain sight the entire time. The guards, finally reunited with their princess, looked at me with something between disbelief and gratitude. Chaskin placed a firm hand on my shoulder, an unusual gesture for her people, and said nothing at all, because nothing needed to be said. Within the hour, platform defense ships arrived and drove the raiders away from our sector. The danger passed as quickly as it had arrived, but the fear it left behind lingered in the eyes of every child in that hangar. Later that night, once the corridors were declared safe again, I found Vesica sitting alone near the observation window, watching the stars outside in silence. I sat down beside her without a word. "You did not leave any of us behind," she finally said, even though protecting me would have been easier alone. "It never crossed my mind to leave anyone behind," I told her honestly. "That is not how this works." She looked at me for a long moment, then smiled, small and genuine, the same way Torin had smiled after her simple apology weeks earlier. "I understand now," she said quietly. "Why my mother sent me here. I did not fully understand it myself, not completely, But sitting there under the quiet stars, surrounded by children who had trusted me enough to follow me through a dark tunnel during the most frightening night of their lives, I felt something settle into place. Somewhere along the way, without ever meaning to, I had become exactly what this strange, powerful, complicated empire actually needed. Not a soldier, not a diplomat, just someone who checked if the children were okay, every single time, no matter what.